production funding for Behind the Headlines is made possible in part by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
TVA and the Memphis Aquifer, tonight on Behind the Headlines. I'm Eric Barnes, publisher of the Memphis Daily News. Thanks for joining us. I'm joined tonight for a conversation about TVA's decision to drill into the Memphis Aquifer. Brian Waldron, you're a civil engineer from the University of Memphis. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Scott Banbury is with the Sierra Club, Tennessee chapter. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Jerry Collins, the CEO, president of MLGW. Thanks for being here.
Glad to be here.
And Bill Dries, a senior reporter with the Memphis Daily News. And so I should say, we invited TVA on, and Bill had done an interview with their new board chair recently, and she'd done some interviews with other people. TVA did not want to participate, and that's their choice. So we will talk, and Bill and I will try to represent their position and quote a little bit from some of the statements they've made to us. I should say also that we are taping this a week ago, give or take, and the Sierra Club is just, along with another group, has filed a lawsuit against TVA. Is that correct, Scott?
Yeah,
but
right.
we had asked TVA before that, and they couldn't do it. And so hopefully in another show, we'll get TVA on as this issue evolves. You are filing, we'll start with the lawsuit. I mean, that's probably the newsiest part of this. Why the lawsuit, and what are the grounds for the lawsuit?
Well, when we filed this appeal against these well permits, first I want to say that we're not trying to pick on TVA. Had we had another target to go after to bring this issue to light, we would have, but there's never been any public notice on these well permits. We've never known when we had an opportunity to bring these issues to light. And TVA, because they're operating more in the public sphere, has provided us this opportunity to raise awareness in our community and move policy forward. And the policy had a lot of shortcomings, one of which has come fully to light with this appeal process. There really wasn't a procedure in place that gave us appropriate rights to due process, to call witnesses, to bring evidence to bear on things. And so we're challenging this in Chancery Court to point out those shortcomings of the process.
And I should have probably started with a little bit of a backstory for people who aren't as familiar with this, because some people are really tuned into this issue. Some people take water and power and so on for granted. But TVA, which supplies power to MLGW, right?
That's correct.
The power plant, there's an old coal, 50, 60-year-old power plant that coal-fired is being replaced by a gas-fired power plant that opens in 2018.
Yes.
$1 billion project. You correct me, any of you all, where I get it wrong. It takes a whole lot of water to run something like a plant like that. And rather than buying the water through MLGW or taking the water from a treatment plant, which is what they talked about, it'd be kind of lightly treated water, they drilled their own wells, 5 of them, I think 4 are complete, into the Memphis Aquifer, the aquifer which supplies the water that Memphis is known for. And again, the permitting around, no one's saying they did something illegal or they weren't allowed to do. They were approved by various bodies to do so, but there are a lot of concerns about it. Those concerns include, will they deplete it, and will they in any way sort of pollute it? Is that fair? I'll turn to the civil engineer here. What are the scientific concerns? Not that you're accusing them of anything, but the concerns about people drilling into the aquifer.
The concern is, you mentioned it before, one is quantity. Are they going to deplete the aquifer? And the U.S. Geological Survey did a study and said that they would not. And in fact, the amount of water that they're pulling out is less than what MLGW had provided to Cargill just across the way. The issue in that particular area is the threat of contamination. And there's a protective clay that sits above our groundwater and keeps pollution from getting into it. And in that area, there are 2 known holes, naturally occurring holes in that clay, which allow shallow water to move in. And
shallow water is not as pure as the water that we drink that is deeper down.
Correct.
We have a graphic that shows the kind of layers of an aquifer that is massive. It is much, much bigger than I knew, and I think probably most people know.
It is huge. It crosses about 8 southern United States. In that particular area in South Memphis, it's about 800 feet thick. So if you took the Clark Tower and stood on top of each of itself, 2 of them, that's how thick it is. It's a very large unit, very prolific with water.
And from an MLGW point of view, and Brian referenced Cargill. Cargill was a manufacturer here that you all provided a tremendous amount of water to. They closed or all but closed that plant, whatever, a couple of years ago.
Yes.
You would know. And you all were ready to provide the water through your regular sources to TVA, but they decided to bypass MLGW. Is that fair?
We still can provide them with water if they choose to buy it from MLGW, but indications are at this point that they'll be using the vast majority of the water from those 5 wells.
And you all, I mean, when you work with TVA, I mean, you do a whole lot of, I mean, they're a partner of yours, you do a lot of work with them. So are you in a difficult position in this when they're making a choice to bypass getting water from you?
We are TVA's largest customer. We buy approximately 10-11% of the power that TVA generates. I don't think that we're in a difficult position. Our mantra is to always do that which is in the best interest of the customers as a whole, and that's the customers that live and are served in Memphis and Shelby County, so that's our obligation.
But you don't have any regulatory authority over the wells that get drilled. Is that correct?
MLGW does not have regulatory authority, and if there's one good thing that's come out of all of this, it's that the process for issuing permits for wells must be changed, and the sooner the better.
Yeah, I mean, someone from the health department here who was on the board, member Karen Banks, I'm quoting from an article, said there are other factors that should be considered in reviewing well applications, but the health department didn't have that discretion. And so I think that's one thing, and you're nodding your head, Scott Bamber, and then I'll go to Bill, that a lot of, I've heard people say is, again, it's not so much that anyone tried to cheat the system or bypass rules, but the rules maybe just haven't been refined the way they should. Mayor Strickland has said that. He's on the record saying this should be handled differently going forward.
It was very progressive when Shelby County adopted these well regulations in the first place. We're really the only county in Tennessee that has substantive rules about groundwater wells. And they didn't grow with the times. And what we've come to understand as time has moved on is that there are other things that we should be considering besides those that were laid out in the original ordinance. We're very hopeful that the drafting that's occurring right now before the county commission is going to address a lot of those holes. I know the Shelby County Health Department's contributing to what they think are good ideas in this regard. Sierra Club and others are contributing their ideas. We hope to be able to tighten things up. One of the things that was in the original ordinance was a requirement that if municipal water supplies were available, that issuance of well permits should not occur, and so that was part of our original appeal, and that's part of what we're now appealing in terms of their denial of our original appeal.
All right, Bill.
And Scott, just to be clear, sometimes what happens in these lawsuits in Chancery Court to prevent something is that there's a request for an injunction or a temporary restraining order. That's not being sought in this case.
I don't think that's something we're going to see. TVA is not going to turn these wells on probably until at the earliest next summer. Hopefully the lawsuit is over by that time. And, even if we prevail, TVA may still keep those wells in place as a backup. One of the things they've talked about is reliability, and we believe that there should be reliability too. This is our sole source of power in this area. And so, we would hope that they would go back to their original plan to use wastewater from the treatment plant. That might take some creative financing on the part of the city of Memphis, and the state of Tennessee has a revolving fund to support projects like that. And I think maybe if TVA was cost sharing, they may be amenable to that. We don't know, can't speak for them. But those wells may stay in place as a backup, but let's go to a more appropriate source for their primary water supply.
Brian, you did a briefing that I was at last week in your role as director of CSER, the institute that you had at the University of Memphis. And one of the points you made in that briefing is that we probably don't know as much as we should and have as up-to-date information as we should on breaches that there have been in that clay layer that's between our groundwater and our aquifer.
Correct.
So, in your opinion, how out of date is our information, and what are kind of the steps that we would need to have up to date information on that?
The identification of where these breaches are in the clay is by luck. We drill a well, we don't hit clay, oh, there's a breach. And there's no real way to go out across the entire county and identify where all the breaches could be. It's just too cost prohibitive. But we do know that in this particular area and near President's Island, that there are 2 breaches. One was identified by the USGS, one was by the University of Memphis in 1995. And there is data from the Corps of Engineers that shows that the Mississippi River moved across that entire area, which is a massive river, and could very well have eroded the clay. We don't know, but the possibility is there. So it's kind of getting back to what Scott has said. It's not anything about targeting TVA. It's just, that's just not a good spot to drill a well. Mm-hmm. And because we don't have information that would suggest, are there more breaches, but the likelihood is there.
Jerry, you talked about additional measures in guiding who gets a permit to do what in terms of these wells. What are the specific measures that you're looking for that we don't have now currently in the process?
Well, for instance, we would like to have controls that would make sure that wells are not being drilled in the vicinity of a previous hazardous waste site where a contamination problem might occur. And we want to make sure that we don't have wells being drilled in close proximity to existing wells that are being used for a drinking water source. And we want to make sure that when wells are drilled, that it's always in the best interest of the people that live in Memphis and Shelby County, and that they're in control of their destiny and not being controlled by someone who probably doesn't even live in Memphis and Shelby County.
Now, Scott used the phrase cost sharing as one of the possibilities on some kind of treatment facility that would be nearer to the plant than Maxon is, although Maxon is pretty close to it. What do you think about that from Light, Gas, and Water's perspective?
From a cost sharing standpoint?
Yes, sir.
If they treated the wastewater from the treatment plant, the estimate from TVA is that it would cost about $6 million a year. TVA's annual budget is about $12 billion. So $6 million out of $12 billion is a pretty small drop in the bucket. And we think that TVA can absorb that. And in doing so would set a great example for sustainability and taking care of the environment.
We should also point out that we had an interview with Lynn Evans, who is the new chairwoman of the Tennessee Valley Authority Board, who is from here in Memphis and a former member of the Memphis Light, Gas, and Water Division Board. And in that interview, she did not totally close the door on some kind of arrangement down the road that might be something other than getting the water from TVA's own wells on this. Are there any talks that are underway on this?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
And I'll read from, and I think we can put it up, from Lynn Evans. And again, for people just joining the show, we'd asked TVA to be on, and they were unable to provide someone. Lynn Evans said, the decision that was made by TVA was in line with our mission to provide low-cost energy. We are still being good environmental stewards in the sense that based on our internal and external advisors, we have made a decision that will be in line with our mission. Are there other manufacturers who have done this? I mean, how many wells are there that are outside of MLG&W, just in Shelby County?
Well, there's quite a few. It's hard to know exactly how many because there's not a whole lot of transparency in terms of information regarding these wells. And that's part of the new ordinances. We're hoping to, actually require that the county put up a repository of data so that concerned citizens can see what they're up against. And we believe that, in some cases, some of these manufacturers that do have their own wells, that we may need to look at them again. One of the ones that concerns me a lot, and this is not to pick on DuPont, but DuPont's a chemical manufacturing company, and if there wasn't, substantial study in that area to see if there might be any breaches nearby there where you could have contamination problems, you've got a double whammy. You've got them drawing down the aquifer at that location. I believe to the tune of 6 million gallons a day, correct me if I'm wrong, but and if there was a breach there and DuPont, God forbid, was to have a chemical accident there, is that a threat to our drinking water supply?
It's an environmental issue, but also it's an economic issue. We come back to Cargill. Was it when did Cargill closed that plant? A couple years ago?
A couple of years ago, and Cargill was using about 5 million gallons a day that they were getting directly from MLGW.
And that caused, and I apologize, I don't remember, but you had to do a rate increase, or you looked at doing a rate increase on all Memphians because you lost that revenue. I mean, how much was Cargill paying you for that 6 million gallons a day?
It was about $1.8 million a year.
And did you do the rate increase? I remember you went to City Council, or City Council questioned you on that whole issue of that lost revenue, and you wanted to get it from everybody else.
We absolutely did have a rate increase, and that was a small portion of the reason why we had a rate increase.
Okay. The water in Memphis is also, again, it's an economic development issue in the sense that the water is so clean, it's drinkable and it's great, and it doesn't have to be heavily treated for people to drink it. But we did a show this summer on some of the local, breweries that have popped up, and I think it was the person from High Cotton who made the point that, you think of places that have really well-developed local breweries in Oregon and Washington and Colorado, but he said, they don't have any water, they have droughts, and it's really expensive, and the water has to be heavily treated. And he speculated that there'll be more and more breweries here just because of the water. I mean, I think MLGW is involved with economic development issues through the chamber and so on. How is the water sold, the water as a resource sold and pitched to possible incoming companies?
Well, first of all, we are very comfortable in saying that we have the best quality drinking water in the country. And it's not only good for drinking, but it's good for manufacturing, it's good for food processors, it's good for breweries. It gives them a higher quality water to use, and that makes their product better. Right. So the fact that it can make their product better is a great selling point for bringing industry to Memphis.
And it's a lot cheaper than in other places, right?
We have very inexpensive water, and our rates are the second lowest in the country for any major city.
Right. We're talking about the environmental side again. You all supported the gas plant, is that correct?
Absolutely.
Versus the 1958 era coal plant and the pollution level from coal. But you got some pushback on that, right? I mean, some people want to see more solar, more alternative energy. A gas plant is not non-polluting, it's less pollutants than coal. Does this water thing make you question your support of that gas plant?
Well, so, we generated, I want to say, over 1,500 comments, the Sierra Club did, in support of this decision. And this decision is a result of a lawsuit that Sierra Club and National Parks Foundation initiated in 2016 over sulfur dioxide pollution that was coming out of many of TVA's plants. Again, fully supportive of it, and we participated in that NEPA process, but in that NEPA document, it explicitly said that they were going to use wastewater from the Maxson treatment plant. We were shocked that when they reversed that decision and did what they call a supplemental environmental assessment to support their decision to switch to their own wells, that they didn't put it back out to the public. We would have been happy to have stepped in at that time and helped them find a better solution before this became kind of a brouhaha. And so I think that TVA just slipped up public relations wise there and made an assumption that they could change their mind about that without letting the public know about it. And it's obvious that Memphis loves its water, and so we're kind of shocked.
The group, and now I go to Bill, the group that you all filed a suit with, a group called Protect Our Aquifer.
Yes.
Who is that group?
Well, so that group is a very diverse group of citizens in Memphis that have been concerned about our drinking water, quality
But a new
for a long time.
that came out of this.
New group that's come out of this, and we're very hopeful for that because we believe that's going to lead to a greater awareness across the city. And I know that Protect Our Aquifer is already making arrangements and appearances at local churches and civic organizations, and get people on board with protecting our water for the future.
Okay, well, it's about 7 minutes, Bill.
Brian, what's the price tag on getting the kind of data that you need on the aquifers? I think it involves some more reviews or timelier reviews than you've been able to do. So what would Caesar need? What would the appropriate agencies need to get the up-to-date data and continue to get it?
Well, that was a question that was asked by the legislatures that came down about a week or two ago. They asked the same question, and where our center receives research support dollars from MLGW annually, it would take additional dollars to investigate the issue down in that area, and the price that I quoted to at that time was $250,000 over about a 2 to 3 year period. To look at it across the whole county, it would take a lot more and a lot longer period of time. The price I kind of guessed, it was guesstimated, but it was around $750,000 each year for about 5 years. But that's where we have been lacking. You can't make smart decisions without data, and where we have a lot, we just don't have enough. And that's kind of the issue that we're running up against.
Right. And the Allen Steam Plant was built in the late 50s, early 60s. We call it the Allen Steam Plant, even though it's a coal-fired gas plant. But at that time, the industrial development in that area was really kind of just beginning.
We didn't understand. We had different environmental regulations then as well. The underground resources it was just not well thought of to protect them. We didn't even know about the breaches at that time either. You can look at other areas in Shelby County, such as old landfills, and they don't even have a liner, and they are leaking into the shallow groundwater system, and some of those are leaking into our drinking water supply. So it's these historical industries and situations that impact current operations. Carville was another issue when they had a hexavalent chromium plume from a 1950 era manufacturer hit one of their well fields recently, and they had to shut it down. We're dealing with legacy issues now.
So just to be clear, when people hear plume, I think, and you're talking about pollution, they think of something in the air. But this is, in effect, what I would guess looks like an oil slick below ground, and it's underground. So you're kind of feeling around in the dark in terms of determining how big that is, where it is, and where it's going.
You don't know where it is until it hits your well. And then you go, oh, there's something going on. Then you have to backtrack and try to figure out how big it is, what it is, where it originated from, and where it's going.
Jerry, in terms of keeping track of all this, do you need more information about our water source and what's going on above it?
We need more information. You cannot get too much information. This is a large area. Shelby County is the largest county in the state of Tennessee. We have 170 wells scattered across the county. We need more information.
170 MLGW wells?
Yes.
Okay.
There's other utility wells and industry wells and private wells.
Right. Back to your point of not knowing exactly how many. Sticking with MLGW for a second, alternative energy, it's wind, solar, and so on. What you all don't have? There are a couple of solar farms around the Shelby County area, but none of those are MLGW ones. Is that correct?
That's correct.
But do you ever look at that? I mean, do you all look at becoming a provider of, or are you just going to continue to buy from TVA?
Our contract with TVA stipulates that we buy all of our electric power from TVA.
Would you like to see them go in a direction of more alternative energy sources? Or is that...
Actually, TVA is going that direction, and there is more solar farms popping up. And I expect to see some sizable solar farms in Shelby County moving forward.
Because you all were there were people on the environmental side who wanted to see some solar or wind, I think it was solar, go in as part of this replacing the coal plant.
We would like to, and I believe MLGW has actually applied to be a part of projects that would bring that to Memphis and Shelby County. One of the problems is that TVA is moving in the right direction. I totally agree with that. We hope they keep moving in the right direction because there's been some messaging out of the new White House that they want to go backwards and go back to coal. And CEO Bill Johnson of TVA has clearly stated that he doesn't want to go backwards. And so we hope they stay on their track. But we think that TVA could take advantage of a few opportunities that are available. We have a power line being built from Oklahoma to bring wind power. It's going to plug into the system in Millington. TVA has not yet made commitments to purchase that power. It's being offered at a very low rate right now on fixed terms for 20 to 30 years, which would really be kind of a safety net on future energy costs should the price of natural gas or coal go up in the future. And we think that they could open up more opportunities for rooftop solar. They're doing a good job of buying from these large utility scale solar projects, but they're still limiting the number of people who can put solar panels on their own roof and sell back to the system.
I'm going to switch gears a little bit, just a couple minutes left. You all have you guys talked about lead pipes and hooked up to homes. What's going on with that? I'm going to do a bad job of describing this, but you've got a program to replace lead pipes in Memphis, Shelby County.
So we have 250,000 customers in Shelby County, and we estimate that about 25,000 of those customers have lead pipes going from the main to the meter.
Okay.
And those are in older parts of the city, inside the parkways, around the parkways. We have increased our budget for replacement of lead service lines at a rate of $2,000 a year, and hopefully within 10 years we'll have all those pipes replaced.
Again, describe I actually live in Midtown, so I probably am somewhere in the sweet spot for this. The pipes are where? From the main, which is
from the main to the meter.
Main to the meter.
Then there's privately owned lines from the meter to the house.
I got you.
And some houses have lead plumbing inside the house.
Right.
But irregardless, we add a food grade phosphate to the water that makes the water non-corrosive, so that we can make sure that we keep lead concentrations down to a minimum.
And the pennies program, which I've just forgotten the name on the bill.
Share the pennies.
Share the pennies. Describe quickly what
Share the
is going on
pennies
with that.
means it's a roundup program for utility bills to the nearest dollar, average $6 a month, for making houses more energy efficient, especially those that are in very bad shape.
All right, thank you. Thank you all, and thank you for joining us. Join us again next week.